to zip code, and today we'll be looking into another cup of code, particularly connecting Postgres into your Spring Boot application. So without wasting further of your time, let's just get right into it. So the one thing that we'll be looking into is what do you need to get ready to connect to your PostgreSQL database. Firstly, on the pom.xml file, you have two dependencies that you're going to need. One is the PostgreSQL, which is the driver for Postgres, and the second one is Springboot starter data JPA dependency that will allow Java to interact with the database. So if you go to your application, the POM file you'll find just right at the bottom. It's pom.xml, and of course I have other dependencies here, but what you would need on your side will just be that one, and also that one. And then all the other ones are based on my need, and obviously if you started the tutorial from the beginning, you would have seen using the Spring tool to set up the project, and you are able to add these on the fly over the web and download your artifact and then open the project. It will have all the dependencies that you need for your application. So once you have these dependencies ready and set up on your side, then you will go to applications to properties. My password here is actually the issue, that's why I won't open this, but essentially what I have in there is this config. So it's application.properties file, and you have your spring.datasource.url, which is your Postgres URL, localhost, port number, and database name, and then data source username, Postgres, data source password admin. And then you also want to configure some JPA configs in there. You want to set your DL to auto update, show SQL true, formatted true, and dialect. We want to use the PostgreSQL 81 dialect for the DB side. So those should be fine. So once you have these two files set up, you are ready to go, ready to start using your database in your application. So now what's the next big thing? So the next thing is we need a new Java class with two annotations at entity and at table, which points to a database table. So these two annotations will make sure that these Java Pojo will point to a database table, and JPA will be able to interact and map the data according to that. So that's the entity mapping side. And we see that on the entity package that we have here for our user entity. You see we have add entity and we have add table, and we have the table name that is there on our database, which is C user that we have. So our entity already maps there, and with all these columns there that we have, so we might need to have a generated strategy there, but let's just continue for now so that we can see this in action. And we have the one other thing, the next thing that we need to set up is a data access object repository. So this is a Java interface that extends a JPA repository. So when you go back to our code, we go to our Deo package, we see that there's an iUser repo, and it's an interface, and it extends the JPA repository, and we give it the entity that it represents, and the data type for the ID of our entity. So that will be a long, and this should be fine. So with all these, this is what is going to be transacting with the database and communicating with the database. And once we have the DAO, we're basically now ready to interact and use our application with a database system. So what's the next thing is now our business logic, where we have a service implementation layer that runs all the business logic rules and covers the business case to deliver our application. And essentially, that's it. So let's put all of this into perspective, see how our application comes out. So we've seen the entity, we have our entity here, it's already there, and we have our repository, it is set up, we already set our configs, and we have our controller here, and now the business logic sits on the service layer right here. And as you've seen on the previous video, we already have our users which were hard-coded. So now we want to add dependency injection and use our repository to fetch data from the DB. So now let's do some dependency injection here. We want to load an iUser repo, so just give us that. This is private, and let's just do that quickly. And this will be user repository. All right, so this should be like that. Okay, so that now is injected there. So what we want to do at this level is to remove all of this hard-coded stuff and actually use our dependency injection. So a lot of developers don't like to actually code at the service layer level, so they would rather abstract that as well. And so here we'll do a find all, abstract that to a service implementation layer where most of the CRUD operations here will be abstracted and will be implemented in the service implementation layer. So just for now, for tutorial's sake, let's just do this and see this in action. So this is going to remember, our interface will interact with the database, and it's going to find all the user entities that we have, essentially all the users that we have on the DB, and it's going to bring back that list for us. So we can just go back to our code, and we have entity list. Now we want to see our controller, and in our controller we already have get user entity list, retrieve user entity list. So also here some dependency injection for our user service. So let's see if this API will give us what we are looking for. Let's go back, and now we want to run this API on our application. Let's just make sure the application is up and running. So let's just run that quickly. And then it's a pretty small application, so it should be fairly quick to boot up. So that's there. Setting up the dialect, JPA, entity manager factory, boom, 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 it's up and running. Now we can get that, and let's see. Right, so as you can see, guys, we have our list. It's no longer hard-coded as we did on the service layer or the business layer. It's no longer hard-coded, it's coming straight from the database, and according to our database we have only one record, which is fine. So this is how you can interact with the DB, and we will do some more CRUD operations. Then you can see this application coming to life. For now, this is it. Just wanted to show you can connect to the DB and interact with it. Cheers, guys. On to the next one. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.